AV24 Leonard with two carburetors and 290mm, 292mm cylinders, and it makes a nice 30 horsepower engine. And the problem with that nowadays is the crankshaft. Nobody's making a crankshaft anymore. The guy that was making the crankshaft retired and got faster in Arizona building engines, and he's a year behind. If you have him build you an engine, you're going to get it a year later. And that's how many engines he's been building for this big wheels. And he built the 45 horsepower version, and it has 94mm cylinders and a stroke crankshaft. And for a crankshaft, what he does is he buys a scat crankshaft that's stroked and counterbalanced, and he cuts it in half and rebalances it. And that is about the only way you can get a crankshaft nowadays. He will sell you a crankshaft, but when he puts it in his airplane, puts it in his engine, it's just age. He said a lot of things you're not supposed to say. And anyway, when he puts them in his engine, he rebalances them. So and they have counterweights on them. The cat crankshaft has counterweights, but they don't make a two-cylinder, and that would be a good thing for them to start making. They have put off calling him and asking him to do it, but I need something I need to do is call Scat and ask him to start making crankshafts, because that's the biggest problem we have with the Volkswagen engine right now, is getting proper crankshaft in it. But they're really a good engine. They last a long time. I know people that have 500-600 hours on them, and they're still going strong. I recently sold the original Legal Eagle, and it's 26 years old, and its engine was still good and strong. I ran it to the guy, and he was impressed. And Les Holman and I used the wood bar dyno on it, and it turned out to be 29.9, so it's 30 horsepower. And you need to get a 1600 cc engine to start with. Don't take anything other than the 1600. And one of the quickest ways to tell a 1600 engine is to look on the bottom of it, and it has two oil pressure relief valves, one in front, one in back. If it doesn't have that, it's not a 1600 cc engine. And when you assemble them, you discover the empty holes with a piece of 1/8 aluminum. And don't use these castings that people sell, because they're too heavy. One of those castings is twice as heavy as a piece of an 1/8 aluminum to cover up the hole with, so don't use them. Also, there's in the engine instructions, I recently redid the engine plans because they were kind of lacking in a lot of information. I've been selling them for years, and I wasn't really happy with them, but I recently did the plans for the engine, the VW engine, and I like this set of plans a lot better. We also have another engine that we've been working on, and it's a bolt-on and fly type thing, and it's a Briggs Stratton engine, the kind they use on the zero return lawnmowers, and they roar all day long, all summer long, and they hold up real well. We've got probably 50 hours on it, and Les will come up and tell you about it here in a minute. It's a key start. That's one of the things that's really nice. You get in the cockpit, you just turn the key, and the engine's running. It starts right up, starts immediately. And I've been taxiing it up down the runway a lot, and it's a pleasure to get in one and start it up. We bought the engine, paid full price for it, didn't get a discount or anything. And we bought the reduction drive from England. It's Ace aircraft from London, and they're made in India with all CNC machines, and they're a beautiful piece of work. And they are probably the most reliable redrives in anybody's manufacturing. They're very, very good. We had zero problem with the redrive. You know, sometimes you just blank out. That's one of those senior moments. You just missed it.
How many horsepower is the Briggs at?
The Briggs is 22 horsepower, but the redrive makes up the difference. It is it runs a 16-inch prop, and there's a lot of. I'll tell you what, we've got an expert on this. We've got an engineer here that did all the testing, and he has written a real nice paper on it, and I sell that information for $50. And if you're even considering even thinking about a Briggs Stratton, you need that information. But he has really put a lot into it, and I'm really proud of those plans. Let's come up here and tell them about the Briggs Stratton.
The Briggs Stratton is it's the Briggs Stratton Vanguard 23. They start out, they advertise 23 horsepower. That's at 3,600 RPM. Well, we're turning it a little bit faster than that. And on the wood bar dyno, at the RPM that our wood prop is turning, which is about 4,300, we're actually seeing about 27, 28 horsepower. Well, what happens is that redrive on it gives us a lot more torque than the standard half VW. The torque side, we actually are getting more torque than the 37 horsepower half VW. We don't have the horsepower, but we have the torque. And so what happens is the torque really makes a difference in the Briggs Stratton, the 23. The 23 is kind of a misnomer because by the time you get it into the flying configuration, we're getting a lot more torque out of it and a bigger prop, and that makes a big difference. The Briggs Stratton Vanguard 23, we take a standard engine, we take everything off of that engine. They make a flywheel that's aluminum, so if you want to save another 10 pounds, you can put the aluminum flywheel on it. It does make a difference because you lose the electrical system. And it's nice to have the electrical system, and you've got an extra 10 pounds. You also, the cast iron flywheel is a little bit smoother than the aluminum. But the aluminum is a good way to go if you're really interested in weight. The testing, when I first started, we wanted to keep the engine as stock as possible. The start carburation, the single carburetor with the intake manifold that it come with. And I had a warp drive mounted on it, so I had something that was adjustable. And I could dial in the RPM and get it to as efficient as it was going to operate with the horsepower and the conditions we started with a totally stock engine. I could get the engine off of the ground, but I couldn't get out of ground effect. And so what I had to do, the original goal was to keep the RPM at 3,600. Well, I needed to get a little bit more RPM, a little bit more power out of it. And I experimented with a single Mikuni carburetor on the original manifold instead of the carburetor that the engine come with. And that helped a little bit, but it didn't make a big difference. I went to dual Mikuni carburetors, the VM26, the 606, And at that point in time, I picked up almost 400 RPM. And that made a tremendous amount of difference. And I was able to dial in the prop and the engine combination so that with the work drive prop at about 4,200 RPM, I was in business. I was flying. I could get out of ground effect, I could go cloning, I could do everything you wanted to do. Now, the Briggs Stratton engine does not have the performance of the burner or the 45 horsepower half VW, and it's not meant to. It's meant to be an alternative for the lower horsepower, like the 28 or 30 horsepower half VWs. And it does a great job of filling that role. The next thing that we worked on was a propeller, a wooden propeller, to replace the work drive propeller, so that a person could just buy that prop and put it on the engine and be ready to fly. It took us several tries to get a propeller that was working, and we finally got a Culver prop that was working. We returned 4,300 RPM on takeoff with the Culver prop, and we were getting about 280 feet a minute. That's with me in it. Now, I was testing the airplane at full gross weight, and with my burner, which is 42 horsepower, I get close to 500 foot a minute. Well, with the Briggs Stratton, I was getting about 280 pounds, or 280 foot a minute. I have a friend that come out and flew it. He weighs 160 pounds. He was getting 380 to 400 foot a minute. So he was doing pretty good. Once you're in the air with the Briggs Stratton, I have trees all around our airport. So when you take off, you're going to be going over trees. And it's nice to be high above those trees. And I flew on some real hot days with density altitude of up to 4,000 or 5,000 feet, temperatures up to 9,500 degrees. And I was able to clear those trees and fly without any trouble. And again, this is at full gross weight. Once you're in the air, the speed that you fly at is about the same as you're going to see with the half VW, even the bigger horsepower half VW. The legally, with a normal cruise, you're going to see about 48 to 50 mile an hour. And with the Briggs Stratton, I was seeing about 46, 48, 49 mile an hour. So it depends on where you run the throttle. The fuel usage for the Briggs Stratton was about the same as it is for the half VW, or even the burner, roughly about 2.1 gallons an hour. The Briggs Stratton, once you're in the air, handles great. The temperatures, oil temperatures, everything is good. I was getting complaints in the airport I live at that the exhaust pointed straight down without any silencing. And so I added a couple of mufflers from Tractor Supply, and it quieted it down, eliminated the complaints, and I only lost about 10 RPM. So I figured, hey, that's a good deal. I think they were only a little over a pound for the two of them. So I got a quieter engine. Well, when you're flying, sometimes it's nice to have a noisy engine. Sometimes it's nice to have a quiet one. So with the mufflers on it, it quieted it down and made it a real pleasure to fly. It was a fun engine to fly. It was an engine that you felt like you could turn it off and on anytime. If you're flying along, you could turn the key off and turn it back on, crank it back up, no problems. The other thing that I found through the testing process, one day I fouled the plug in it. I had fouled the plug and I pulled the plug out of my burner and put it in the Briggs Stratton. Well, I found out that was no-no because one of them is resistor plug, the other isn't. It's a non-resistor plug. And anyway, the Briggs Stratton didn't like it, and that plug quit working. Well, I'm up flying above the airport, and there's somebody taking off. So here I am effectively running on one cylinder. Well, I was able to maintain altitude and go around and wait for the person to take off and then make a normal landing. So that was kind of a confidence builder. Another situation I had is I was flying one day and I blew a head gasket. Well, again, I was able to maintain altitude, get back and land, and fix the problem. I made a mistake and I only fixed it on that one cylinder. And the one thing I can tell you, that the machining on the Briggs Stratton is not the same as it is on an aircraft engine or even a half VW, because there were some machine marks in the head that were quite deep. And so I took those out and put it all back together and thought, hey, I'm in great shape here. And a few flights later, I was taken off. And once I got to a point where I couldn't turn back, going over those trees, I blew another head gasket. Well, I was able to finish my takeoff, finish my climb out, and go land, and sure enough, another head gasket on. Well, same problem, the machine marks on the other cylinder. So I changed up, I filed and removed those machine marks, put new gaskets in it, and went flying, and after that didn't have any further problems. But that built a lot of confidence in the motor, because it's nice to know that if you have a problem, you still have the ability to continue flying. The Briggs Stratton with the electronic ignition, or the ignition system and the starter on it, is just, it's so neat to be able to turn the starter. I never had a problem choking it. I never had it flooded. It would just start it up and go. And it was actually a lot of fun to fly. The engine at idle sometimes has a roughness to it, depending on which propeller, which flywheel you have on it. But once you get above idle, it smooths right out and is as smooth as any engine I've ever flown. Yes?
What's the weight comparison between the half VW and the
The half VW and the Briggs Stratton with the aluminum flywheel, the Briggs Stratton is a couple of pounds lighter firewall forward. With the cast iron flywheel, it's a few pounds heavier. Although my 45 horsepower half VW I have on my legal wheel with a magneto and firewall forward, that included the prop bolts, mounting bolts, everything. It was the same identical weight as the Briggs Stratton with the flywheel. So keeping the flywheel is well within the realms of possibility. And the total weight, firewall forward, of the 45 horsepower half VW was like about 102 pounds. But that's firewall forward. The engine was a lot less than that. And a lot of times you'll hear people talking about engine weights. That's fine, it's the engine, but what about all the other accessories you need? The magneto on a half VW weighs approximately 5 pounds. And your exhaust system, those weigh something. And your props, your prop bolts, the bolts that hold it all together, they all have weight. So you got to count everything firewall forward. Anyway, the Briggs Stratton, I put roughly 50 hours on it under various conditions, and I needed to move into some other stuff on some other stuff I was involved in, so I took it off, and we took it down to Leonard's, and we put it on the original Legal Eagle XL, and I got to fly it. And he don't have any big trees at his airport, and that is so neat, because if you get in the air, you can fly forever. And you know, having the ability to get in the air so easy and so quiet and just buzz around down there was a lot of fun. But they're a great engine and a great alternative for the lower horsepower half VWs. Any other questions? Yes?
Well, how do you justify the ignition if you remove the iron flywheel? Where do you get the electricity for the ignition if you eliminate the electrical system?
Okay, the standard Briggs Stratton has an alternator system on it. The alternator system, when you remove the cast iron flywheel, goes away because there's magnets inside that cast iron flywheel that are part of your charging system. So you pull the cast iron flywheel off, and then you have a stator behind that you can pull off, and you can pull your voltage regulator off, save a little bit more weight. Now, when you put the aluminum flywheel on, I've talked to a lot of people, and they have not figured out how to make a generator work with the aluminums. So you lose that charging capacity. Now, we were using a lithium-ion battery to save weight. It's 1.1 pound. Well, when you have your flywheel on, it charges that battery and everything works great. When you take and go to the aluminum flywheel with the lithium-ion battery, you cannot let the voltage on those things get down to 10.5 volts, because they die, they quit. And so if you go with the lithium-ion without the charging system, you basically have to charge it after every flight or every use with a charging system that's rated for the lithium batteries, which generally charges at a higher voltage than a standard battery charger. And that's kind of a downside. I finally took the aluminum flywheel off and went back to the cast iron just so I didn't have to wrestle with destroying the battery. Yes.
Did you consider lightening the iron flywheel? Like turn something off with a blade?
The aluminum flywheel come with fins on it, and I machine those off. But the cast iron flywheel, the fins are actually plastic. They're held on with like 4 screws. So when you're taking the engine apart, you end up with just a disc as the flywheel. And those fins, you just take them off. You don't need them. The oil cooler on the Briggs Stratton, the oil cooler comes with it. And so I just swung it out, kind of took it into the Airstream and put a ramp in it to get some air going through it. I tried it without that, and the oil temperatures went up. But you get some oil going through that oil cooler, and oil temperatures stay way down with no problems at all. The one thing I did do is I was turning it up to higher RPMs, is they make some shims. The guys that race and the guys that run the mud boats, they put a little shim under the springs. The standard springs in the Briggs Stratton engine are only about 6 pounds. So you can very easily just take a finger and push them down. Well, they put this little washer underneath each of the springs that gives it just a tad bit more tension and a little bit more strength if they're in the spring. And they turn those things easily up to 5,000 RPM all day long. And you're running a prop in the water, or the mud, but it's the same thing we're doing. And anyway, I did that later on just to see what there's a difference. At 4,300 RPM, and I run the engine up to 4,500 to see if there would be any valve flow, and I never could find any. But we tried to keep the RPM down to 43. And at 4,300 RPM, they work great. The mud motors, a low horsepower mud motor is a minimum of 4,500 they operate, and 5,000 is not unusual. Yes.
What's the ratio of your reduction?
The ratio of reduction is 1.8 to 1. It's an ACE aviation redrive, and they do it. It's a very high quality redrive. When you order it, you do not get the drive bushing that goes between the engine and the drive port. You have to order that yourself. And in the plans, it tells you where you can order this. There's quite a difference. The 1-inch, at the time, I was able to get it through Amazon for like $45. The 1.8-inch, I had to get it through Fastenal. It was like $176. And there's several different places that they're available. And on the plans, it gives you the model number and who makes those. And you can do your own research to find where they'll be available. Yes.
Does anyone, assuming the flywheel acts not as the stator, but the other part of the vehicle?
That's correct.
Has anyone thought of gluing magnets to the aluminum?
As I understand it, that has been tried. Because the guys that race garden tractors and mud boats and whatnot would love to be able to use the aluminum flywheel and have electrical system. And I understand a lot of research has went into that. And I haven't heard of anybody that's been successful making that happen. Yeah, if you added a little alternate charging system of some kind, a little solar panel up on top of the wing, or a generator. But when you do that, you're starting to get back into the weight and the complication. You might as well keep it real simple. And there's not that much difference in total engine weight. Now, one of the things, I'm in the process, I'm doing some, I've got another project going that I'm starting to work on, and I'm going to be building another flying machine, another legal, but it's going to be powered by AV24, the Briggs Stratton. And the only real difference I want to do is I want to turn it up to a higher RPM. One of the things is I was doing research, basically the V-twin engines, and it don't make any difference who's manufactured is, if you want more horsepower out of them, there's all kinds of things you can buy and put inside of them to make them stronger. But to get more horsepower at a low RPM, don't seem to be like something that's doable. To get more horsepower, you got to turn into higher RPMs. And if you're going to turn it to 7,000 or 8,000 RPM, you want to spend a lot of money buying a lot of heavy-duty stuff. But there's no need to do that for what our needs are. I do believe that engine at 4,500 RPM will deliver a little bit more power, will last a tremendous amount of time, and take care of all the flying we need. And I'm going to be using a work drive prop because I like it to adjustable, so I can dial in the prop to exactly what I'm doing. But it was probably the most fun engine I've ever flown in my life, because when you got an airplane where you can just hit the key. If the engine's been sitting there for several days and it's cold, don't make any difference. It's real hot and you just finish flying, you're going to crank it up again, don't make any difference. It just cranks up. Yes.
Or three-bladed warp drive prop.
The two-bladed is the best way to go. What happens for the total power and the RPMs we're working at, the weight of a three-bladed prop would increase. Any other questions?
You ever thought about turbocharging?
About what?
Turbocharging?
Oh, I looked into that possibility. There are some nice small turbochargers available that a person can use for that. The problem you start running into when you get into turbocharging goes back to that good old word, weight. Because you're going to have some exhaust pipes that come together and get it back into the engine and the weight of the turbocharger, and so you're going to be adding some weight. And there's so many neat things that can be done, but you have to stop and realize my enemy is weight. And so one of the other things, I operated with short exhaust stacks. And I've been talking to somebody here that has worked with engines, small engines, and worked with long exhaust stacks. And he had a project where with a longer exhaust stack, I think it was 22.5 inches, he was able to pick up 400 RPM. Well, he's building a legal with the front of it. It's going to be a Briggs Stratton. And he's going to be experimenting with a longer exhaust stack. And so that's a possibility. That's something, we can pick up some more power there. Yes?
I apologize.
apologize if this is too basic and stupid. The Briggs Stratton engines that I've seen on these lawnmowers that you're talking about are vertical drive. Is your reduction also right angle or?
No, the redrive is for horizontal drive crankshaft. There are some zero turns where they use the horizontal engine. They use them a lot on wood chippers. They use them a lot on just all kinds of different industrial machines. The ones I'm most familiar with is like wood chippers. I know several people in our area that have wood chippers. And I can show you another one that's on a machine where they cut tires up. It runs hydraulic pump where they cut tires up. And they run one about everything. Now, yes?
I just wondered, with the Briggs & Stratton with the redrive, have you tried it at different elevations to see how it's doing, higher elevation?
Yeah, I only went up to about 5,000. Our field elevation is 430, and I went up to 5,000 and played around there. The different temperatures, I flew it with density altitudes as low as 45 or 450, about 400 feet, up to density altitudes of about 5,000 feet. And I saw no difference in temperatures or anything. If you were going to take it up to 8,000 or 10,000 feet, you may have to change jetting, but I kind of doubt it.
But like a field elevation of, let's say, 4,000, would that not work?
Yeah, you'd be in business. Yeah, I
Still
have no doubt.
Okay.
Yes?
RPM do you run the VW engine?
The VW engine, wide open full throttle, should be up around 3,600 RPM. And when you're cruising, you'll be cruising somewhere between about 2,800 and 3,100. Now, the half VW, once you get in the air and get to cruising, even with the wood prop where you're turning 4,300 when you're climbing out, when you get up and level out, as heavy as I am, I had to run about 3,800 RPM to maintain a comfortable cruise. My friend that weighed 160 pounds, he could go back to 3,400 RPM and maintain a comfortable cruise. So you do get to pull the power back, and it depends on what your weights are. I wanted to test it at maximum weight, because if I tested at minimum weight and someone that's heavier, what good is it going to do? I'd rather go the other way around, where I a lot of weight being tested, and anyway, it's just a better way to do it, I think. Something else to be aware of when you get into not only the Briggs & Stratton, but any of the basically lawnmower engines, they have tons of model numbers, and everything changes when they make a little design change to the engine. So something that was a great, readily available model number a year ago, they may have superseded that with newer model numbers. And those changes might be anything from one of the bolt holes drilled a little bit deeper to a new boss or something put on it somewhere to hold something for some manufacturer. The other thing is, when you start hunting for parts, internal parts, head gaskets, sometimes they're difficult to find for a specific model number because they've got a whole ton of head gaskets. Well, the head gaskets, turns out that they're almost all identical, but they have different model numbers depending on which one of those engine model numbers it is. And if you try to find that, it can get kind of interesting going through it. And one of the things I reversed the process, and I looked at all the head gasket numbers, and when I started finding all of them the same for that same series of engines, it's like, why do I need to get specific one number? And I found that as I contacted manufacturers, some of the suppliers of these parts, to get pieces at the head gaskets, some of them is like, no big deal, here, this gasket been working for the last 10 years, you know, that's what you need. And others, they'll come back and say, well, you've got to have this specific part number, and that only costs you $100. And you have this other guy who, you know, we'll sell you one for $30. And so it's kind of a different realm than the Volkswagen parts and engine parts for aircraft. And it's nothing, something everybody can get used to, but it's a change. Any other questions?
What kind of material, what do you have to have at home as far as a saw to make a full VW a better half VW engine?
Well, one of the neat things about the VW engines, the older ones, and most of them have a magnesium case. And if you have a magnesium case and you want to remove some metal from it, you can take your wood saw and chop it up. You can take a horse nail file and file the metal off of it. Your the cylinder head, if you want to cut them in two, you can use a metal cutting bandsaw. If you take your time, you can actually use a wood cutting bandsaw. And if you don't have a bandsaw, you can actually take a handsaw and cut them in two. So they're actually quite easy to work with. The one thing on the half VWs, as your engine mount and the spool pieces in your engine mount need to line up very precisely with the engine. What happens, people tend to have the spools in the engine station one, they'll be off a little bit sideways or turned at an angle. And when you put your bolts and everything in there and you're trying to fly this thing, every once in a while you find yourself, you broke a bolt. And if you really check, the reason you broke that bolt is it wasn't straight, or it was turned at an angle, or it was off dimensional. And so that's something you really got to watch. Yes? The noise of Kirk around the out. The cast iron crankshafts are a no-no on the VW. Okay. Yeah. Leonard says he's never seen one. He's never seen the cast iron crankshaft. But the half VW that I built, my first engine for my first vehicle, I went to Scat and bought a crankshaft. I bought just a standard crankshaft with the throw that I needed, and I took my cut-off saw and I cut the back off where I needed it cut off. And then I machined that flat, and when I got everything that was going to be rotating squared away, I sent it to Scott Castler and had him do a dynamic balance on it. And that engine was as smooth as any half VW that I've ever saw. Now, the crankshafts, there is some of the crankshafts I understand, and I think it's the cast iron ones you don't want to use, but I don't think that's the normal. The forged ones, I think, are the ones that you want to use. Yes?
When you cut the off and you're moving backward, what are you using for that thrust bearing on?
What you do is you take the thrust bearing and move it from the very back of the case up to that center web. So what you do is you cut the crankshaft off right behind that center web, and you screw it up, and then there's a plate you bolt on there, and you put shims in there. You take that rear bearing, thrust bearing, and move it up to that to the center web. And so what you effectively do is move the thrust from the back to the center of the engine. Yes.
I wanted to ask you, Leonard, why not cut the Volkswagen crankshaft in half to come from the Volkswagen? It's not like cast iron.
Well, the thing that happens, if you leave the entire Volkswagen case there, and cut everything off in the middle, and you keep the back. And what you do, that makes an engine mount, a magnesium engine mount, and it also gives you a much larger area for your oil to cool.
So what I did was, why don't you cut the crankshaft in half of a Volkswagen rather than buying a scat crankshaft?
Well, you can do that. It becomes a matter of how you want to do it. There was a point in time when someone actually sold the crankshaft all ready to go. It was a half a crank. But as I understand it, no one's doing that now.
Using the original's no problem.
Yeah, because what I did when I built my first one, I found somebody who was parking out a Volkswagen, and I got a case. And back in those days, it cost me $40. Well, I went I forget, it was one of the high performance places that sold Volkswagen parts. And I bought a new crankshaft, I bought a new cylinder head. That was kind of strange. One cylinder head? Yeah. Anyway, they sold it to me. I bought a new camshaft. I bought everything new inside the engine, new cylinder heads, or new cylinders, the size I needed. And when I got through putting that engine together, it cost me a grand total of $1,200. Well, the last time I checked, the cost of the crank alone is about $1,200. And so I have no idea what the cost if you got all the parts and pieces and put it together yourself. But a lot of this depends on what you have availability. Because if you have a lot of this stuff available where you can get it at a decent price, you can still put it together a real nice half and get it at a real nice price. Okay, well, I'll turn it back over to Leonard here.
Where are you at?
Les is a special person, he's an engineer, and when you get him started on a project, it's hard to stop him. Fact is, I stopped him from, on my Briggs Stratton. I said, this is enough testing, and so I figured that he'd be going to do something else, you know, but no, he's still testing Briggs Stratton and redrives, and he's really got an interest in it. And he made a paper. He made a paper on the Briggs Stratton engine deal, and he put a lot of details in it, a lot of details. It's really well done, and he even put the mount in there, the dimensions for the mount that you need to use for the Briggs Stratton. So if you're even thinking about it, you need to buy that paper. I sell it for $50, and it's well worth it because there's a ton of information in there. And all these questions you've been asking today, I noticed that they're there in that paper. So if you have any idea at all that you want to have some interest in the Briggs Stratton, get me a hold of me and get on my website and order one of those papers. They're only $50 and it's well worth it. Good money, good spend. And Les is an engineer. And you know how engineers are when you get them started on something. In fact, they used to say, shoot the engineers and go into production. Anyway, he's been a very, very good friend for a long time. And he knows an awful lot about the Volkswagen engines. He tested them. He has a trailer that he takes all over the country and flies the legal in different locations. And he's even been to the where the Wright brothers flew their first flight. He flew the legal over that that's the statue they have there. And we're really proud of Les. He's done a stellar job. While I was sitting there, I thought of something I wanted to tell you, but it's gone now. Too old. At this age, you lose a lot of stuff you're thinking about. I'll say that when I get up there. I'll tell them this is that. The engine, of course, I told you a while ago, the engine you want is 1600 cc for the Volkswagen. And if you get a chance to get a Volkswagen case, so I'd be sure to look on the bottom for 2 oil pressure relief valves. And I come to one of those blank spots again. Give me a minute here, I'll get something going. Anyway, like I said, I'm real proud of the last few years. Really going to help the legal flyers out. I think we pretty much any questions on the legal or the engine?
Are your plans only available as PDF downloads, or you still ship paper tubes?
I ship paper. If you can't download something, some people don't even have a printer. So I will ship you anything. I don't mind it at all. Now I have to ship you the rib patterns. But I've got rib patterns out there by the airplane. And I've got plans out there, and I've got a couple of coffee cups left, and a lot of XL t-shirts, and I have a few caps. I brought all of those stuff, the stuff that I had at the house in my office, and hoping that maybe you take this or be your last chance to ever buy them. But if not, you can buy them on the internet. I can ship t-shirts in a vanilla envelope regular, just like the plans are. I can fold them up, slip them in there. So if you want a t-shirt, I can slip you one. And I don't have anything but extra L, extra large. And any questions on the airplane or yes, sir. Somebody got to translate.
Yes.
Well, I could see your lips moving. But
What kind of cam are you using? Is that a special cam? Like a high?
no, I use a stock cam. The stock cam gives it your best torque at 4,000 RPM. And we're pretty close to that. We're not going to get much closer. And also another thing, I remember what I wanted to tell you. I drilled a hole in the crankshaft. I drilled a 9/16 hole, almost all the way through the camshaft. And the reason I did that is to get rid of some weight. And I also trim off all the extra metal on the crankcase. Because if you trim off more than a pound of extra metal on the crankcase, it's not doing anything. And you don't want to drill all the way through the camshaft because you have the slot there that runs the oil pump. You don't want to drill into that slot, but you can drill right up to it, and it makes it much lighter. The people in California that stroke these things out to the limit, they grind away as much as half of the camshaft, so the rods won't hit them, and they don't have any trouble. I figure they can grind away half of the crankshaft and not have any trouble. I don't have any trouble drilling a hole through it. And sure enough, the one that I've just been running is never given any problems at all. More questions, please. Yes, sir.
What's the difference between the Legal Eagle and the Legal Eagle XL? Are they both?
The Legal Eagle has a shorter wing and a smaller cockpit, but they use the same engine. And
Do they both qualify for Part 103?
oh yes, yeah. If you build a lot of plans, now you got to be careful because you start putting stuff on there that you desire you have on an airplane, you can build up a lot of weight in a hurry. The thing you want to do is to find out what you can leave off and do that. Go the other way. Try to make it lighter than I did. The Legal Eagle weighs 244 pounds, and the XL weighs 246 pounds. And I left a lot of stuff off the XL. No instruments at all. The oil pressure gauge is out on the engine. You look out there and see your oil pressure. So we didn't have to run an instrument in on tubing and everything, run it into the cockpit. And the other thing I have is a voltmeter to tell me what my battery is doing, and a switch. and that does it.
Could you put XL wings on
Wing,
illegal?
you could, yeah, but I don't think anybody has.
Okay. And both the XL and the legal, you can put the folding wings on?
Just on the legal. There's no folding wings on the XL or the double legal. It hasn't been done yet, so I can't give you any information on it. I don't recommend you fold the wings if you're going to fly it. The folding wings is more for storage. And if you're going to use them to fold every time you fly, you won't fly. It's going to take you a half hour to put it together, and then another half hour to take it back apart. And you only got a couple hours to go flying. You won't go flying. So that's the reason I don't really recommend the folding wings for one that you can't pull a pin out and fold the wings back like some of the legal was not designed to be a folding wing, and the system that I had to execute to make it a folding wing is not a great system for a quick turnaround. Turnaround is slow, and it'll keep you from flying. You say, oh, I'm going to go out to the airport and fly. I got a couple of hours. You spend that time assembling it and reassembling and just disassembling it. So that's one reason another question, please. This whole crowd, nobody knows nothing. Everybody's smart. Come on, give me a question. Well, that's about it. We just call it a forum, and thank Les for doing most of it. He's a good guy. I had plenty of t-shirts and plans out of the airplane.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday. Yeah.
Be sure and come tomorrow, because after the forum, we're having a party on the steps here at Red Barn. If you want to know the secret of getting this old, the only thing I can depend it on is the gym. I've been in the gym for about 30 years, 3 times a week, and that's my idea of what it is. And I was lucky enough not to catch any debilitating diseases. Thanks for coming. There's HR. Hold on, everybody. We got a thing here. I meant to announce it. There is a wood kit available. It's in Albuquerque, and it's been in storage for about 10 years. And Albuquerque is a very dry climate. And if you're interested in a wood kit, I have the information in my phone. I'd be glad to give it to you. One wood kit, yeah.
Whether you can use it for my engine on this or the Sonic, find out what I have, before you go home.